The gel was still cold on my stomach when the room went quiet. Too quiet. The lights above me felt harsher than they should have. I stared at the ceiling tile with the small crack running through it, counting the seconds between the machine's soft hums. My husband was near the window, arms folded, pacing in short, restless steps. He kept checking his phone like he had somewhere more important to be. The doctor didn't say anything. She just kept staring at the screen longer than normal. Something shifted in the air. I felt it before I understood it. Then she cleared her throat and asked my husband if she could speak to me alone. My pulse spiked. He hesitated, just for a second. Then he stepped out, closing the door a little too firmly behind him. Silence stretched. The doctor turned the screen away. She didn't look at it anymore. She looked at me. Her voice lowered, careful, controlled. "You need to leave your husband." I actually laughed, a small, confused sound. She didn't smile. "This isn't about the baby," she said gently. "It's about you." She mentioned bruising patterns, elevated stress markers, things she'd seen before. Inside my head, I started arguing immediately. He loves me. He just gets angry. It's not that bad. But something cracked, just a thin fracture, and for the first time, I wasn't completely sure I believed myself. On the drive home, I kept hearing her voice. "You need to leave your husband." It felt dramatic, unreal, like she had confused me with someone else. Because our marriage wasn't that. It was normal, mostly. Just small things. "How much did you spend?" Not angry, just curious, responsible. "Why are you wearing that?" Not controlling, just protective. "Don't embarrass me." He would say it softly, smiling through his teeth, like we were sharing a private joke. In public, he was charming, attentive. His hand was always resting at the small of my back. People used words like devoted, stable, solid. In private, that same hand would tighten around my wrist if I interrupted him. His fingers pressed just hard enough to warn me, not hard enough to leave obvious marks. I used to think that meant it wasn't abuse. I built entire explanations around him. He's stressed from work. He didn't mean it like that. I'm too sensitive. Marriage is a compromise. Every time something hurt, I adjusted myself instead of questioning him. I started speaking more softly, laughing with my mouth closed, checking prices twice before buying anything, choosing dresses he wouldn't comment on. It happened so gradually I didn't notice I was disappearing. The doctor's warning echoed in the back of my mind, but I pushed it down. Doctors see symptoms, not stories. They don't know how kind he can be. They don't see the good days. I told myself she misunderstood. But that night, as I changed into pajamas he preferred, the modest ones, I caught my reflection in the mirror. And for the first time, I didn't look dramatic or abused or fragile. I just looked tired, deeply, bone-level tired, and I couldn't remember the last time I wasn't. A few days later, I got the call. "Can you come in for some additional tests?" she asked, casually as nothing had happened. I sat in the waiting room, heart hammering, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. When she led me to the scan room, alone this time, the air felt different. No machines whirring, no distractions, just her calm, measured presence. Her tone was firmer than before. Not harsh, not loud, just steady. She talked about my stress levels, about how prolonged tension can affect pregnancy. And then, carefully, she said it. Control, emotional abuse, isolation. Words I had whispered to myself in the dark, but never aloud. I blinked, tried to argue inside my head. It's not like that. I'm imagining things. Then she asked a question I couldn't dodge. Do you feel safe? The silence stretched. My chest tightened. My mind replayed every argument. The times he checked my phone, the friends who stopped calling because he answered for me first, the dinners where I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I couldn't answer. Not yet. She didn't press. She reached into her pocket and handed me a small card. Just in case, she said softly. You deserve calm. That sentence landed differently than any accusation could. Not angry, not blaming, just a quiet truth I hadn't let myself hear before. And for the first time, I realized maybe I deserved it. Calm, freedom, space to breathe. I stopped talking about my day in detail. I stopped asking for permission to spend. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I watched, carefully, like I was studying an animal I'd known for years, but never truly understood. He monitored everything I did, not violently, not explosively, subtly. Questions about the grocery bill, suggestions about which friend I should see, comments about my work were dismissive and cutting. Little digs repeated often enough that I stopped noticing them. So I made changes quietly. I opened a separate bank account. No announcement, no note, just a small space where I could breathe without explanations. I reconnected with an old client, just emails at first, careful and discreet, nothing that would set off alarms. I replied to friends I hadn't spoken to in months, slowly, cautiously, invitations to coffee, dinner, even walks, tiny steps that felt dangerous and exhilarating at the same time. Emotionally, I was terrified, afraid of being caught, afraid of what he might say, afraid of the loneliness I'd been clinging to. But there was something new underneath that fear, something I hadn't felt in a long time: strength. Mentally, panic and chaos gave way to calculation. Every move I made was deliberate, measured. No shouting, no tears, just quiet preparation. For the first time, I stopped trying to fix him. I stopped trying to reason with someone who didn't want reason, and I began preparing myself. For what? I didn't know yet, but I knew something was coming, something that wasn't about pleading or arguing, something that would be mine. It was a Friday evening, the kind of family dinner where everyone smiles politely, pretending the little tensions don't exist. He made his joke. Careful, her fragile hormones might get the best of her, he said, loud enough for the table to hear. A few chuckles followed. I didn't laugh. I just looked at him, calm, still. My fork paused halfway to my mouth, my eyes steady. For a moment, he froze. The smirk faltered. He didn't know what to do with me like this. The conversation moved on around us, but the air between us had changed. I could feel it. Later that night, when we were alone, he tried to push. Little comments, soft digs designed to provoke tears, to make me yell, to regain control. But I didn't react. No tears, no voice raised, no trembling hands, just silence. I could feel him shifting in the bed beside me, restless, unsettled. Emotionally, I felt a strange, numb clarity. No fear, no panic, just awareness. Mentally, the realization hit me fully. My silence, my calm, my refusal to crumble, it unsettled him more than any tears ever could. For the first time, I noticed the shift. The power wasn't gone. It wasn't mine yet, but the balance was moving, slowly, quietly, and I had finally stopped giving him the reaction he craved. I started gathering everything quietly, not for drama, not for confrontation, just for protection. Bank statements, tax records, property deeds, old emails and messages, Every little piece of paper or digital trace showed the truth beneath the surface. I didn't tell him, I didn't leave signs. I worked slowly, methodically, like a careful architect building a structure that could hold me up if everything collapsed. I found a lawyer, someone discreet, someone who understood without me having to explain too much. The meeting was short, professional, and precise. I learned my rights. I learned what I could claim, what could I protect, what leverage I actually had, and it surprised me. The assets he had tried to hide, the tax inconsistencies he hadn't accounted for, the small loopholes in his control gave me power if I moved carefully. Emotionally, I felt shock first, and then it transformed into something else, controlled anger, not blind rage, but focused energy. Mentally, I became strategic. Every step had to be calculated. Every conversation, every phone call, every small decision had to be precise. This wasn't about revenge fueled by emotion. It was about survival, about finally claiming space for myself without letting fear dictate my actions. I felt something I hadn't felt in years: anticipation, not for confrontation, not for spectacle, but for freedom. And with every document I filed, every quiet note I made, I felt the scales tipping slightly, just enough for me to see that I might come out whole. For the first time in a long time, I knew I could protect myself, and the thought made my chest expand even under the years of suffocation. This was the beginning of my plan, and it was mine alone. That evening, the house was silent. I sat on the edge of the bed, the soft hum of the heater filling the space, and finally let myself think. The truth settled quietly, almost painfully. I stayed because I was scared, scared to start over, scared to be alone, scared to trust myself to build a life from scratch. I whispered it to no one but myself. If someone out there understands that kind of fear, maybe I'm not completely alone. Maybe someone else has felt trapped by love that wasn't safe. I didn't need advice. I didn't need judgment, just acknowledgement. Emotionally, it was raw honesty. Mentally, it was acceptance, not of the abuse, not of him, but of my own hesitation. I had stayed too long, but finally I could see it clearly, and seeing it was the first step towards stepping out. This quiet moment wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. It just needed to exist. I placed the papers on the kitchen table, neatly aligned, no flourish, no note. He looked at them and laughed at first. Is this some kind of joke? I didn't flinch. I didn't explain. I just waited, calm, quiet. He picked up the financial disclosures next, scanned them, his laughter faded. I watched as his face changed. The smirk dissolved, the color drained from his cheeks. For the first time, he realized I knew everything. He tried his usual tactics: soft apologies, thinly veiled anger, subtle manipulation. I didn't respond. Not a word, not a gesture. Inside, my heartbeat was steady, controlled. Outside, calm, composed. The power had shifted completely, and for the first time, I felt it fully. The fear was gone. I wasn't reacting to him anymore. I was moving beyond him, and that stillness, my quiet control, was far more powerful than anything I could have shouted. The settlement was final. I was financially secure. His hidden accounts were exposed, quietly, legally. No drama, no public spectacle. His reputation took a small hit, not from lies, not from anger, but from the truth I had quietly gathered. I didn't smear him, I didn't yell, I didn't gloat. I just walked away, step by step, with my head held high. Emotionally, fear had finally been replaced by peace. Mentally, I felt closure, not cruel, not vengeful, just complete. The revenge wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was calm, clean, intelligent. And as the door closed behind me, I realized this quiet power, this dignity, was far more satisfying than any confrontation ever could have been.